Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mitzi, and we are going to be I'm sorry, not speaking, thinking about loving life after a loss. And I have a special guest here today, Marie, who is going to be sharing her story and how she was able to accomplish this struggling situation that many people are going through. So, Marie, why don't you go ahead and fully introduce yourself?
Thank you so much for having me, Mitzi. Yeah, I am Marie Alessi. I'm a legacy coach, and that all came out of my background mixed with my experience. And I'm sure we're going to go further into the story, but my background is actually in mindset coaching. And I had a business, a coaching business for a bit over 7 years when my husband suddenly died from a brain aneurysm. And I closed the business down and knew I had to just be present for the boys and myself. Our boys were only 10 and 8 at the time.
Mm.
And then, yeah, through the experience of going through what we were going through, this is how my entire new path unfolded that we're going to share a bit more about today. So that's in a nutshell my background, really.
No, that was a very quick nutshell. Usually it's longer.
Mm.
No, but I do appreciate you telling me that because, death is very sudden, unless somebody's
Mm.
telling you that you're going to die in a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
death is sudden for a lot of people. And I think
Mm.
the issue that people have with death is that because it's sudden, it scares them, and it puts them in
Mm.
this like uneasy feeling where they don't even want to talk about it, and they don't want to
Yeah.
discuss or prepare or just even acknowledge that one day we will die, it's inevitable.
Mm.
But I think us turning our perspective around or just shifting it in a bit so that we can understand grief and understand, how to handle it in the most appropriate way is the best thing to do, especially now in
Mm.
society where people are dropping down like birds. It's really crazy. So what
Yeah.
would be some like good opinions on that?
I believe there are a lot of myths around grief, really, because, yeah, death, as you said, for most people, it comes unexpected. For some people, they know beforehand that their days are counted, but nobody of us really knows the exact moment of our death. And when Rob died, it was certainly so unexpected because he was 45. He was in the prime of his life, super fit. He was a surfer. That's where it's really least unexpected. There were no previous signs. And then all of a sudden he goes on a business trip and never comes home. And to deal with that, I believe that we are in a society that doesn't really support healing much. It rather supports the grief and the wailing in the sorrow. And I say that with all due respect because I've been there, I've walked that path, I know the pain, I understand what it feels like, yet my background, my mindset, my expectation, my outlook, my focus was so different to what most people go through and what most people choose as a path without even realizing they're choosing it. It's just something that lays ahead of them and they walk that path because that's what society offers you. And
Mm.
so I often talk about the hidden gifts in adversity. And I was 20 when my dad passed. So that was also quite unexpected. He was only 46, so only a year and a bit older than my husband was when he passed. Yet back then, I was not prepared to deal with his passing at all. I had no background in mindset. I had no support in healing. I had a lot of support in suffering, in grieving. And I'm saying that on purpose in those words because that's exactly what happens. Like,
Mm.
just look at a funeral. A classic funeral has got a condolence line, and then there's 100 or hundreds of people, depending on the size of the funeral, all lining up to say that one line, my condolences. And
Yeah.
I've been on the receiving end. And when you hear that after 30 times, after 50 times, after 100 times, certainly after 500 times, it feels like empty words to you. There is no beautiful feeling. There's no feeling of, oh, this is empathy. They understand where I'm at. It feels like completely empty words. So I knew out of my dad's passing, I had missed this opportunity of saying goodbye. And I take that up front. I didn't get the chance to say goodbye to Rob either, yet I didn't feel the need to have that chance of saying goodbye because through my dad's passing, the gift in that adversity that I received was to live each day to the fullest and to live my relationship with Rob so in tune and so with open communication. We talk about everything, you know, we never left anything unsaid or undone or unattended in our relationship. So when he passed, well, of course, I wished I had more time with him. Don't get me wrong. Yet there was no feeling of guilt, no feeling of, oh, I wish I would have said that. I wish I would have done that. I did all that. I said all that. And we said it daily because it was so important to both of us. And that was the big difference, that I was not left with a feeling of, I wish I had. And that we did have the talks, as in, you know, what would you do if something was to happen to me? We both had this conversation, and both of us had pretty much the same answer. We were like, I would want you to take the boys and create the happiest life possible. And that's what I knew I had to do. It doesn't happen overnight, but it became my North Star. That's what I knew I was walking towards, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. I
Mm,
think from my perspective, it sounds like your dad's death, really did help you for this moment, when you were
yeah,
going to encounter your husband's death. And
yeah.
to hear you
In a weird way,
say,
it did. Yes.
Yeah, and to hear you say that after so many my condolences, they became empty words,
Mm,
and I could feel that, I can see that, I can see how
yeah.
you can after a while it just becomes just another word in the wind, it's just
Yeah.
something that's being said.
Yeah.
And it
Absolutely.
just shows how sometimes you can become so numb by something that's so
Mm,
repetitive and
yeah.
has no real meaning at the same time. So for you, what
Mm,
would be something that really made you feel that appreciation when other people try to come to you and try to help you and really show their
yeah.
condolences versus just telling you my condolences?
Yeah, I thank you for asking that. It's such an important question because a lot of people just don't know. And I was absolutely one of them. I had no idea what to actually say because that was the go-to line, you know, my condolences or I'm sorry for your loss. I much prefer I'm sorry for your loss than the other way around, but there's another story around that, which we might get into later. But what I prefer to say to people when I hear that somebody so close to them passed is that I say my favorite go to is my heart goes out to you, because that is just stating the fact that my heart is with you. And I'm not saying this was good or bad for you. I'm not putting meaning to it if the loss was really terrible, um, or if you are in a spiritual situation where you fully accept it and embrace it, that this is part of your bigger plan or part of your soul contract. I was very lucky that I had this, um, I don't know if I call it epiphany, enlightenment, whatever, this realization, I should say, quite early into the journey that this was part of our soul contract. This is my deepest spiritual belief, and I'm very respectful that everyone's spiritual belief is very different, or some don't have any at all. But this was my deepest spiritual belief, and I had so much proof that Rob is with us and that he's around us, and um, yeah, it was just such a beautiful understanding. So for me, if somebody says to me, I'm sorry for your loss, it sort of implies that this shouldn't have happened. But it was part of our picture, it was part of our plan, it was part of our soul contract that we have chosen. And it's so hard to explain it to people that have a complete different understanding. So usually I just, do the smile and wave or nod and be polite. But I am really here to share a different view, a different perspective on how you can look at things. I'm not here to push my opinion onto others because everybody's got their own belief and their own bigger picture or their own understanding. I'm not here to take that away from others if that's what they need or want to hold on to. Yet I am here to share a different perspective. And if it resonates with people, then please come on in, be my guest, and um, I'm more on this whole no judgment front. Who are you to tell me whether my journey was perfectly fine like that or not? Did it make me happy? Not at all. Did I choose to be happy? Yes, because that was our path that we had chosen for each other. And if it was Rob here with the boys and me on the other side, I'd be the one making sure that he will create a happy life because that's what we promise each other. And honestly, I love simplifying things. And for me, it was a sheer understanding that love is simple. Love just wants you to be happy. And I would have wanted the exact same thing for Rob. So often when I don't know how to handle a situation, I literally do the role reversal and go like, okay, if it was me on the other side, what would I want Rob to do? What would I want him to decide in that situation? So it's a bit of that shifting perspective, but also a very strong trust in your intuition. And that is both something that can be developed. It's like a muscle that you need to train, and it all starts with a choice.
Wow, yes. What you just stated and what you spoke was so beautiful. It really was
Mm,
because
thank
you
you.
can I can feel the sincerity, and
Mm,
I can see how you're really not letting this bring you down. You really conquered this, that many are
mm,
struggling sadly, and I love the fact that you actually offer help to individuals who are still struggling with their
mm.
grief and the passing of a
Yeah.
loved one. I thought that was I actually cried reading your story.
Mm.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
I know I'm pregnant and hormonal, but I literally cried
Oh.
because my husband is
Congratulations, by the
oh
way, here
thank
in
you.
front of the camera as well.
My husband's older than me, and we're
Mm,
on our second child, and I know the possibility of him dying before me is real,
mm,
and that sudden expect like that it could happen suddenly, and I
yeah.
know this, and he know this, and we speak about it,
Mm,
and how we would do it. And it's like you said, we just have to
mm.
live each day, you know, happy. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional.
Oh, no, 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 no. It's okay. If you don't mind me saying something here, I hear you, Mitzi, because I understand what it's like, and in particular understand the hormones that are happening when you're pregnant and you talk about things like that. It really gets to you. So maybe we should have done an interview another time. No, I'm just saying, I think it's beautiful that your husband and you have this talk about it, because when you say he's older, okay, yeah, but there's statistics and then there's reality. When it comes to statistics, Rob shouldn't have passed, and then there's reality, and he did. And maybe it's exact opposite for you and your husband. Who knows? We don't know how long we have. We don't know who goes first. What I think is important is that, yes, you do talk about it, because a lot of people shy away from this because it's too confronting. It is emotional to talk about that. I remember being really emotional talking to Rob about that, because I remember that one moment we had probably 3 or 4 talks about this in depth, and it was
Yeah.
usually triggered by like a fatal accident or something. You drive past, you see something really bad happened, and you're like, oh my God, what would that do to our family? So you talk about it and then you move on. So for the family, they don't move on that quickly, or sometimes even not at all. For them, it has happened. For us, um, we we move on because it was not our family affected, and it's the same thing in our situation. This is something that we dealt with, not nobody else. For other people, their life moved on and they went back to normal. And I talked to our boys about that. It was a very important topic to address with them, where they said, and I remember my older son saying to me about 6, 7, 8 months into it, he said to me, Mum, I think my friends have sort of forgotten that Dad passed. And I looked at him and I said, yes, Flynn, they probably have. And I said, and it's not a bad thing. This is
Mhm.
reality. I said, imagine that with every person in our lives that we just heard of or know, or friends of friends of friends dying, we would hold on to that and grieve deeply for I don't know how long. Our life would be so miserable. Our life would be so heavy. This is what we do as humans. We naturally heal. When you look at physical wounds, we naturally heal, and we can do things to support the healing, or we can do things to hold it back or prolong it. And it's the same
Yeah.
thing for emotional healing. Is a choice, really. There's so much that we can do, like even just from wound dressing when you talk about physical wounds. And I know we're getting a bit off track with this here, but I really want to say this now, that we are on this topic. I often say to people, when you think of a field of physically wounded people, let's say there's a war going on, there's an entire field of physically wounded people. Nobody in their right mind would walk through this field and say, well done. Yep, continue. Yeah, put a bit of more salt in that wound. Yeah, you're doing really well. Yeah, just scream a bit louder. It's your absolute right. It's horrible what you're feeling. Yeah. No, everybody would call for help. Everybody would get the nurses, the doctors. They would try to help them heal, to dress the wounds, to clear them up. Yet when it's emotional pain, we do the complete opposite. We do that. Yes, it's really horrible and that this will stay with you forever. So many people support the pain rather than the healing when it comes to grief. And
It's true.
as soon as you compare it to physical pain, they all go like, oh my goodness, yes, why would you do that? So
Yeah.
there's this really, yeah. So anyway, I got completely off track, but I wanted to come back to you and say, there is that real importance of talking about it with your family. So you are in that, we have talked about it. It's good to know what you want for each other. It's good to speak it out loud, but then also to really focus on what you have and focus on the happiness that you have, because otherwise you get so sidetracked from the fear that one day something could happen or one day he could pass before you because he's older. Who knows? We don't know that. So don't get sidetracked with that fear. Just embrace
Yeah.
it and hug him and be as happy as you can now, because now you've got him. And it's really important to live that and trust the widow when I tell you that. It's really, yeah, stay in the now with him. It's so much more important. And I understand that with hormones, you can get easily sidetracked and lured in by fear. Don't allow fear to take over. Love is so much stronger, and stay in that love.
Well, thank you for that. I really do appreciate that advice. I'm
Mm,
gonna keep that personal with me because that that
yeah,
is so true. Sometimes when I
yeah,
catch myself going into that direction, I
mm,
I do think of our love and I do think of like those happy moments and
yeah,
it gets me right on track,
yeah.
even when he gets on my nerves.
Perfect.
It most definitely works for me. So I do appreciate
Yeah.
that so much. And your example with the physical wounds and the emotional wounds, that
Mm,
was not off track at all. That was exactly needed.
mm,
I strongly
yeah,
believe that somebody in my audience is listening in and they needed that metaphor, that
yeah,
parable, or however people want to call it, just so that they can
yeah,
visually see it in a different way, in a different perspective from
yeah.
however they're seeing it. Because when you put it in that way, oh my goodness, it's like night and day.
Mm,
It's
yeah,
honestly, how can you not treat your emotional wounds the same way that you treat your physical wounds?
exactly.
It's
Exactly. That's why I haven't shared this for a while, but that's why I brought that in, because I felt this is really important for some people to hear. It becomes so normal, to as soon as you bring that comparison in, people go like, oh yeah, I really need to shift something. And if you don't mind, I want to share something
go
quickly. This
ahead,
is
go
this
ahead.
is super personal, but it's so beautiful because I said to you, I'm getting so many signs from Rob that we are on the right path. Um, about 4 weeks ago, Rob's dad passed away. And we were all so lucky that we were with him. He wanted to come home. He was in hospital, he was in ICU, and there was nothing left that they could do for him. And he said, I want to come home. I want to die at home with my family. And he did. And it was so beautiful because we were all together. We were all in his room and we were all holding him in love and we were holding space for him. And those final hours, we had about 7, 8 hours with him, just sitting with him, talking to him and holding him. It was so beautiful. And 3 days before Ottavio passed, I started getting really intense signs from Rob. I always got them, but it really intensifies. And, I had things like, I'm sitting in a room on my own in a living room, and all of a sudden, all lights went on and like really warm and bright. And I was like, whoa, okay. I'm like, I know you're with us, I know you're here. And then I had this feeling the next day. I was sitting there barefoot, and I had this feeling as somebody would stroke finger down my foot. And I looked down because I thought, I'll tell you something in a second. And I looked down and I thought my cat was walking past and it was her tail stroking past, but she was asleep. And can you see the hand raising in the picture?
No,
It's like a hand raising in my image. Can you see it?
the
When
handwriting in
you
your
when you press
picture.
the button, raise your hand on Zoom. It's on now.
Oh, oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
I didn't even
No,
touch the
sorry, but no,
screen.
no, no,
I
sorry
didn't
about
even
that.
touch the screen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what
It's
you mean.
it's
I
on my
seen it.
screen.
Yeah, I see
Yeah,
it too
and
on
that's
the
been
left.
happening. I had to press lower hand because it just happens all the time. I'm in a Zoom meeting. here again, and it comes up and it just flashes quickly, and sometimes it stays so other people see it too. You just saw it.
Yeah, I
And
just saw it.
it's really like it's been happening in every Zoom meeting. And while I was telling you the story and I'm like, I'm getting off track, I got these thumbs up and I'm like, okay, I'll keep going. It's just so bizarre. And I keep getting these signs all the time. I'm in a meeting and I'm literally talking with my hands, so I can't even touch the screen. And all of a sudden I get thumbs up, or hand raising. And I'm like, this is really bizarre. When you watch back the recording, you'll see it, that the hand
Yeah,
actually stayed there and both my hands are up. I didn't touch the screen. And it's almost like Rob's going like, yeah, keep going.
yeah, good
It's so,
job.
anyway, yeah, it's really bizarre. It's been happening so often. I sometimes get it like 30, 40 times during a meeting, and mostly it just pops up as if there's a circle loading, but it doesn't stay. And sometimes it just stays so other people can see too. So mostly it's just me seeing it, but sometimes it just stays on screen and it just did.
Yeah, when I
Anyway.
seen it, I was confused. I was like, "Wait, did I touch something?" I even looked down. I was just like, "Did I touch something?" I swear.
Wasn't me either. That was Rob. Thank you.
This conversation was most definitely needed. Oh my goodness.
Mm,
You have
yeah.
a beautiful soul, and I feel like what
Thank
you're
you.
trying to do is necessary, and I see how you've
Mm,
impacted. I've read the testimonies, and oh,
mm.
I wish I could just give you a hug because you are doing such great work.
Thank
Air
you.
hug.
Yeah.
It's so funny. But I guess to start
Mm,
wrapping up the show, what would be some great advice that you can leave my audience off with? I know you've been already giving us great advice, but what would be that
mm.
lasting words that you can leave us with?
Yeah. I think really think about this shifting of perspectives. What would you want for your loved one when you're on the other side? And I understand that people also sometimes are not in the best of relationships when that happens. And then there is regret and then there is guilt. But what I want to tell you, and again, I'm saying that with all due respect, that everyone's faith is very different. But my belief is when you pass over, there is nothing else but love and peace. So if you can't do that from the perspective of your partner, or if it was you who passed, do it from the perspective of love and peace. When you are in that perspective of love and peace, what would you want for the people that you leave behind? What would you want them to do? And do exactly that. Take that as a choice. And people who need support, who need that surrounding influence, like this is my really last call for you. Create a support network, create a network, a support system, a bunch of friends that really just have your back without judgment. They don't judge you, they just hold space for you. That's what we all need, because sometimes people are so easy and so quick to judge, despite having walked a mile in your shoes. So if you don't have that, come and join our group. It's like, find us on Facebook, Loving Life After Loss. There is 3,500 people to date in that group, and all you get there is love and support. There is no dragging you down and judging you for whatever you do. People actually want to be happy. Deep down, we all want that. Yet when we're grieving, we often think we're not allowed to be, but we are. All these emotions can coexist.
Thank you for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my
Mm.
goodness. This is so nice. I'm
Thank
so
you for
glad that
having
we
me.
were Yes. Oh, I feel honored, to be honest. I feel more honored to have you on my show because you really were able to bring a perspective and say it in such an elegant way. Maybe it's your accent. I don't know. But you said it
Thank you.
honestly so beautiful and so like straightforward where people can just
Mm,
understand, you weren't going around the bush and you spoke from the heart. And I think people need that, people need to hear people like
mm.
you and your testimony and what you've been through. And it's, to be honest,
Thank
an
you.
honor just to have you here. And I hope that at least one person in my audience that may be going through this can really shift their perspective in the way that you
Yeah.
suggested because, you were able to even help me in that quick little moment, my emotional breakdown. So I'm pretty sure that you can help somebody else out there. And if anybody in my audience is looking for help or wants to know more about Marie, please check her out. I have a beautiful photo on my website. You can find a link to her
Hmm.
website and you can have access to
Mm.
everything Marie. You know, you can find out everything that she's been doing and what she's willing to help you with, and even other podcasts and articles. She's done so much. You know, you have to
Mm.
go search her and figure out this for yourself because you will not be disappointed. You may cry a little, but you will
Oh,
not be disappointed.
oh, I love you, Mitzi. You should be my PR spokesperson, seriously. You're so beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, there you go. You guys have it. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank